Our friend Yesenia will be joining us shortly.
Fabulous.
We'll give things a few more minutes as the community gathers. We'll get rolling in a few. We'll see if my awesome little statement in Slack encourages more folks to hop on.
Hi, Rob.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing well. I hear you are potentially gonna work with us on the UN thing, right?
Yes.
Nice. That's exciting. Stacy, I just looped Stacy in on that. We're gonna talk with our friends at OWASP. So yeah, I think this is gonna be an actual thing again. I'm excited.
Okay. Hi, Stacy.
Hello. How are you?
Good.
Good.
So we are waiting for more people to join.
Yeah, I know Marsala is on in a on-site meeting for her company, and Yessie was just wrapping some stuff up, and she was gonna pop over shortly.
Okay.
Hi, Camilla. Thanks for joining. We're just waiting for a few more folks here before we get started.
Okay, hello.
Hi. Hey, Marcella.
All right. Well, I know that Yesenia will be joining us shortly, and thank you for popping on, Marcella. I thought you had your on-site today. But let us begin. Our topic this month is celebrating women in open source. So I'm very happy that we've got some interesting old friends, and I have not met Camilla yet, so we have maybe some new friends we can chat with. But oh no, well, don't drive and try to run the meeting, Marcella. Be careful. Uh, but let's talk about this is a very important topic that we are very fortunate within the OpenSSF that we have a lot of lady contributors, some amazing engineers and folks from OSPOs, and just a real broad spectrum of folks contributing upstream. Oh, good. Marcella's not driving, so don't be afraid for her. But you might be going through a tunnel to mess up your audio. And there are many organizations across the ecosystem, things like OSS, the Diana Initiative. So there's a lot of great organizations that focus on women in STEM careers, and particularly our focus, open source software. So I'd like to start our discussion, and hopefully the group of us and any other joiners can continue on. But let's talk about, and maybe if someone's interested in taking the talking stick first, what interested you in contributing to open source software? Aside from open source software being totally awesome. Yeah, I know I've heard your name said many times, and I'm sure I'm going to mess it up. Is it Ijoma or
Yes, correct.
Ijoma?
Yes.
Yay! Well, please go ahead. What got you into open source?
Okay, that was like a few years ago, about 3 years now, or 4. So, what got me into open source was all about the experience. So I was just someone that just joined tech, and I was still trying to find my way, learning how to be a good community manager, manage open source communities. So, and the best way to actually do impactful and actual work was to volunteer to contribute to different open source projects. So that's how I got started. I started contributing as a community manager. From there, I moved into doing more of social media management, and I started discovering more open source projects that resonated with me, and whatever they were doing was very easy for me to understand, or they gave me all the help that I needed to actually make impactful contributions. So I started contributing to projects like Chaos, um, into their DEI event badging. So we badge for events like the Linux Foundation security events. I've done a lot of badging for different open source events. Now we are moving towards project badging, like getting different open source maintainers to actually come and badge their project under CHAOSS. And then when I picked interest in cybersecurity, I was like, okay, there will definitely be an open source community that is related to that. And that's how I found OpenSSF. So that's it. I keep, whenever I develop interest in something, I look for an open source project that does it. and I start contributing. So that's it for me. That's how I started, and here we are.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Does anyone else? There's a lot of different paths and jobs within the open source ecosystems. Anyone else interested in kind of sharing their steps to get where they are today and within open source?
Okay, I'm a little settled.
Excellent.
Hi,
So how did you get
everyone.
started in open source, Yassi?
So I have a whole podcast episode on this, but we won't plug that in yet. So I started in security back in 2013, 14, something like that. I don't know. It's been a couple of decades. And I've always was in like the software development realm, building out tools. So I had all these free libraries everywhere that I would pop into my product, never knew what it was used for or where it came from. I just knew that it worked and it was magical. And then I started at Red Hat when I was a supply chain engineer and the whole SolarWinds event happened. And this is really where it gave me the insight of what open source was and how big and expansive this whole thing is. And then from there, worked at the Linux Foundation on an open source project, and now I'm at Microsoft, doing more open source work. But it was really interesting to go from a college student that would plug it into her everyday class homework, and then go into software development security role where I was building out security products, throwing in these like additional dependencies as well. And I'm just like, la la la, everything is fine, nothing's gonna crash and die. There's nothing wrong with this. I trust it. It's from the internet. What could go wrong? Um, until I got into the supply chain and learned the impact that all this has. But it's been quite a journey. And then with that, I learned about OpenSSF, about a bunch of other groups, and just I never left, essentially. That's kind of my TLDR of my journey.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Is anyone else interested in talking about how they got in this amazing open source space?
I guess I can go. I
Oh,
also did a podcast recently, but it's not been published yet. But Yessie and I sat down and had a little chat recently. Um, but I wasn't in software in the early days of my career. I came from a non-software related field, got an office management job. I was in San Francisco at the time, working for a company that did software composition analysis, right?
mm,
And really, they said that they did vulnerabilities, but really it was more about the licensing issues. And so it was all about sort of mitigating, license compliance violations and things like that. Like, are you really doing what you're supposed to be doing with the open source licenses? But I was just a regular old office manager, so wrapping my head around what open source was, I didn't get that for about like 4 or 5 years before I was there for a while. And then after that company, I moved into some marketing things, and then I got hired at Weaveworks actually in 2019, and that's when I feel like I finally understood what open source software was. It wasn't just this weird licensing thing, is what I kind of saw it as before in my previous job. And I got into the CNCF community, working on the Flux and Flagger project, which is
ooh,
GitOps and progressive delivery. Flagger is the progressive delivery arm of the Flux project. And yeah, it was just, I got brought on as a community manager. I'd been in marketing and things like that before. But I didn't really know what contributing looked like, right? And all of the stuff until I got hired as a community manager. And one thing that I can say is that I was pleasantly surprised at how welcoming the community of Flux itself was,
mhm.
and that entire ecosystem really of the CNCF and the Kubernetes space, right? Like the community there is just so open, and they're just so glad that you're there, just in general. And I really, really appreciated that. I always felt like I belonged, right? I never felt like an outsider. Even if I couldn't code, they didn't seem to care, which was really nice.
Yeah, I can't code, or no one wants me to code, so I absolutely empathize with that part of your journey. Is anyone else interested in sharing how they got into open source? Camilla mentioned she hasn't started yet, but she's here to get inspired. Well, that's great. Well, I know the ladies here on the call that are speaking, so I think you're going to get an amazing dose of inspiration today. Are you at a spot where you could share part of your journey, Marsala, yet?
Yeah, I finally figured out my audio issues, and it was a permission problem, not an actual. Yeah, so I'm not driving. My lovely partner is. Anyway, how did I get into open source? I started coding as a student and was in college, and then that was sort of my first, I would say, exposure to open source projects. But I wasn't contributing, I was just sort of a consumer of them. And then sort of towards the end, I had an advisor, a professor who was like, oh, you should really look at this subversion thing, and that's what everyone uses. And yeah, it was odd, but I don't know, that was sort of my first exposure to version control and those things which are central to open source software these days, I think. But as a contributor, I didn't really start until I would say I was in grad school doing my master's and trying to get some of my projects out there, because my professors there were like, well, we need to show that, you know, we've actually built something. We can't just like write about it in papers. So I was just putting the code out there, not doing anything with it. We didn't have a community, right? We didn't, I wasn't keeping things up to date, all of those practices that we kind of advocate for these days. And I thought that was open source. I was like, you put it out there and then anyone can look at it and use it. And that's it. So I don't know, I guess that was sort of my also complete lack of understanding. And it wasn't until I think I actually started to contribute to projects, and I did a Google Summer of Code as a mentor actually first, which is kind of an odd way to start, but that was sort of my first real exposure, I would say, to open source, to actual open source software. Was, oh, we have maintainers and we have sort of contributors that are learning the project. And I kind of learned with our mentee that summer how open source really worked. And so yeah, I've kind of not looked back since. And nowadays I'm a maintainer for several projects, and I just really I echo what Stacey was saying about the kind of welcoming environment. I have had some experiences with projects where I get the sense that maintainers gatekeep a little bit. I will say that. And I don't know if that's a woman thing or if it's just those maintainers in particular, but yeah, they, for the most part, I've had very positive experiences with being part of different communities, and everyone kind of runs their project differently. And so it's been very interesting to see that.
Oh, thank you for sharing, Marsala. Let's think about, we have a lot of different paths and a lot of different roles that people are fulfilling within the community. But I think one thing that might be universal is we all kind of bump into adversity from time to time. So maybe would you be interested in sharing some of the challenges that you've observed or experienced as being a woman in this very technically oriented discipline? Have you had any challenges or anything you want to kind of experiences you want to share with the group?
I'll kick it off. For me, this came back up from like college. I took programming to about 4 times. I was struggling so hard to pass that class. I don't know what it was. And when I would talk to the professor, and it was only one professor in that university. for programming too. He was like, maybe this is not for you. And I was like, that's not the problem. The problem, yes, the problem is me, but the problem is me trying to figure out how to learn this. Um, so I had to use other ways to learn the information so I can pass the class. But that was like a common one for me throughout was like, are you sure this is really for you? You're not really seeming to grasp this. And I was like, there's more to tech than like writing code. I know this. I was like, I want to do security, but at the time there was no cybersecurity degrees for undergrad, at least not in the universities in South Florida or like Florida. And then as far as like open source goes, like there's been a few maintainers, some ego that comes into play, but it wasn't geared towards me. I think it was just more geared to anybody that like would poke the bear incorrectly, or would poke the bear in a curiosity way of like, hey, I need help. I don't understand this. And they're like, how do you not understand this Linux code written in C, very old. I'm like, I don't know, it's magic to me. But those are just some things, but I think overall, as far as when it comes to open source, there has not been a lot of adversity and like difficulties with it when it comes to the tech. That's like a whole different other story. Um, but I think as far as open source goes, like going into the project, they're more than happy because a lot of people are volunteering their time. So they're like, oh, extra hand, do you want to learn? Sure. There is the concern and issue with time and resources, like how much time someone's going to dedicate to helping you learn. And then it's all volunteers, all free time. So you do have the issues of giving your time to help teach someone and then they disappear. And it's like, okay, why did I do all that if you're going to disappear? And I know that's something, at least with an open source, that is discouraging when it comes to newcomers. It's like teaching them and then they just disappear. And it's like, okay, back to square one. And then I'll pass the baton.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share any challenges they might have experienced or observed?
I
Sorry, I
can go
joined a
ahead.
bit late.
Go ahead.
Hello,
Marcella.
Prince.
Hello, everyone.
Go ahead, Marsala.
Um, yeah, so I mentioned before, right, the sort of actually let me try to find a spot. Sorry, I mentioned before that I had sort of run into some projects that where the maintainers just felt, I don't know, in general, very kind of gatekeepy, like I said, and they seemed overall just very strict. And I think Yesenia was saying this that maybe it was probably more just those maintainers' attitudes and not a problem with me necessarily. But those sorts of experiences are honestly they can have a very chilling effect. They can definitely make you feel like you're the problem, and yeah, that's really not the case. It can be discouraging from contributing, and yeah, I mean, ultimately, I ended up not contributing to that project, but I did sort of find a way to let them know that I was not okay with how they were operating, and so I think I got a little bit of maybe closure out of that. But yeah, it does happen, unfortunately, that you encounter some maintainers that are less friendly, less open, even though you're trying to um, contribute your time and effort to their project and make it better. Um, but yeah, that's I would say that it's more rare than the norm, at least.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. Anyone else have any, challenges they might have gone through or observed? 'Cause actually, I'll flip my last question on its head. So if you might have observed this, what kind of advice would you give to new women that are looking to get into this career field, whether it's you're going to be a community manager or a developer or get into cyber? What advice would you give for newcomers or folks transferring into the trade that you wish you would have known when you first started out your journey?
I'll kick this one off. Oh, go ahead, Yoma.
Go ahead.
No, please, you're our guest. Go first.
Okay, okay. I'm going to say take more chances. Over the years, one thing I did that I'm trying to correct recently is hiding. I hid myself a lot. I felt like I should just be a follower, not a leader. And when opportunities come for you to, take up the baton and lead people, I shy away. I feel like, no, I cannot do this, or I'm not meant to do this. So it's just since last year that, okay, I started coming out. I started applying to speak at events. I started giving myself that opportunity to shine, which I never did the past years. So I feel like a lot of women need to put themselves out there more. They need to tell themselves that they could actually do this. Okay, for example, while I was in Germany for the first backstage event that I went to speak at, I noticed that, okay, when after the event, we went for just like a small gathering, and I was the only lady there. Out of about 16 men, I was the only one. I, I felt so uncomfortable. But then I'm already there. I decided to go with them thinking more people would join. And when I got to the venue for our hangout, I was just the only person. Like, what? And I can't start going back because I'm already there. So I started wondering what happened. Why am I the only one here? And I realized all the other ladies just went home. I don't know what happened. So I my last call with the Chaos Project, I talked about something like this. So as women, we need to be more open to taking challenges, taking opportunities. Normal me would have rejected when the Devil Foundation reached out to me to take on as a working group manager for one of the working group projects. Normal me would have said, no, I cannot do this, but I decided to give it a shot. It hasn't been easy. I get confused a lot of times. I don't know what to do. And then there is this thing again where, I'm part of the managers for the working group. And then I have people that are way ahead of me, like people that are in director of DevRel in one big organization, occupying these huge positions. And sometimes there is this feeling to hide and be like, okay, I'm not in these people's level. And then when there are tasks for us to do as managers, I want them to be the first to actually do it, then I follow. I don't want to push. And over the weeks, I've realized we've not been able to get a lot of things done because these people are busy. And then I know that I can actually do this, but then I have this fear. I don't want to come forward and do it when I have more experienced people that I'm working with that I'm supposed to be looking up to. So, it's a whole lot of mental mathematics. So I wish I could stop doing that. And I know I'm not the only one doing that. I know there are other ladies out there that are doing the same thing. So I wish we could actually stop doing that and be more open to doing things and taking on more leadership roles and opportunities. Yeah, I think that's it.
I, I think that's amazing advice, kind of taking a risk, putting yourself out there. Does anyone else have any kind of advice they wish they could tell their younger selves or, young ladies coming into the craft?
I think I'll just follow on to what Ijoma was saying. And, I feel like no matter how far along you get in your career, like imposter syndrome is always something I think that all of us like are up against every single day, right? You can be an expert in whatever it is that you do, and like you still don't feel like you belong to, be on that pedestal, on that whatever, right? And it's hard to get past that. Like real, I even now I'm like, I don't feel like I should be here speaking on this. I mean, again though, it's like every single day, no matter what you're doing, you always have to say, well, screw it. I'm just gonna put myself out there. And I think that's really, really fantastic advice, Ajoma, is that just if I tell my daughter this all the time, if something feels like it's overwhelming or too hard or that like it scares you, then you should probably do it, right? So just dive in and do it anyway, right? But Yessie, go ahead.
Okay, mine is gonna be a little bit interesting of a take. I'll start with a story, but continuing on the topic of imposter syndrome, and I remember in high school, I took my first computer science class, and I'm down in South Florida, so we got a lot of immigrants from like Puerto Rico. Well, they're part of the U.S., but Dominican Republic, Cuba. So I got into this class, and it was just I was literally the only girl, and everybody was speaking Spanish. So I do speak Spanish, but at the time my Spanish wasn't that great. So I felt off in like two whole different spectrums. Just the fact that I was a female, and then the fact that like I barely spoke the language. So I took myself out of the class, even though it was an English class. And that was something that I still hold on. I'm like, why did I do that? Like I eventually got into this field later. Like this is what my purpose was, but like I took myself out of the class because of it. And yeah, there's totally imposter syndrome. Like it still has, I've been at Microsoft for over a year and it still hasn't hit me that I sit in an AI security with the top leaders and my friends like, you're important. And I was like, no, I'm not that important. Like nobody calls me at 3 in the morning. I'm not important. No one cares. I like this kind of importance, but she's like, you don't realize your career and what you've done. I was like, no, I don't. It's okay. I'll still humble, I'm humble. But when it comes to like, and it's an interesting approach that I took. I grew up with an older brother and cousins that I consider them like brothers. And for me, I actually get more anxiety and freak out when it's a room full of females because I'm so used to being in rooms full of majority males. I also train in a male sport. So for me, there's two things. There's a few advice that I would suggest is if you are going to go into male dominated fields, join a male dominated sport and like one, you'll start seeing similarities in how they behave in these two spaces. But it also reminds you that at the end of the day, no matter what their title is, no matter what their gender is, they're still humans at the end of the day. So you can approach them from a human level. Because I used to freak out. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta talk to the VP of blah, 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 like all these fancy titles. And I still remember when I started at a company, I'm not going to say the company, I usually like to schedule time with the leaders. And one of the leaders was just like, oh, I'm a so and so. I don't have time. It's too expensive for me to spend 15 minutes to talk to you. And I was like, you're a shitty human. That's just what it tells me. Okay, we're going to play that game. So for me, remind yourself that remove their title. Remember that they're human at the end of the day. Everyone's trying to figure out what to do. And if being in a room full of male scares you, do something outside in a sport. I do martial arts, so in my head it's a little crazy, but I know how to physically fight with men now because that's what I do in my sport. So it reduces that like fear of like, oh my God, I'm in a room full of men. Oh my God, what if they? I'm like, nah, it's okay. I got this. So a couple advices there, but I'll hand it over to Marcella.
No, I like that perspective of just, but you're almost exposing yourself to it so that you kind of desensitize in some way to that experience. I have to admit that I've actually done the opposite. I've sought out more spaces where I can just be amongst more women, because there are so many situations in the workplace, also kind of like you, Jasenia, and I didn't take programming in high school or anything like that, but at the college level, I was the only computer science major woman in my entire year. And I went to a small college, so there weren't very many like majors to begin with, but I just was one of maybe two in the class when that even happened. Um, and so for me, I have been used to being kind of in the gender minority there, but also um, I would say for I guess I'm sharing a little bit more of my experience. I've seen the academic world and I've seen the kind of industry tech worlds both, and I have found the industry tech world to actually be much more welcoming than the academic world. Like not to diss the academic world too much because I also really like that space, but um, kind of when I was a student, there were a lot of like people really care about ranks and seniority. Um, and so there are just a lot of people who are just like, oh, you're trying to talk to me because you're trying to get like backdoor entrance into the program or whatever. And I'm like, no, I'm just trying to understand. And so I have slowly become more comfortable with seeking out communities with more women. And that's, I think that would just be my advice is it can be very hard to tune out those like negative voices and experiences. But it like acknowledge that that can be exhausting and acknowledge and there's no problem with trying to look for communities where you do feel more welcome and like you fit in. And nowadays, I feel like things are starting to almost flip for me. Um, I have my first woman manager in my entire career, and I'm apparently one of her first like woman sort of employees in the group, and we both like just bond over this now. Um, yep, it just happened that way, but yeah, I think these are just kind of common experiences. Like it's okay to acknowledge that and just know who you can trust to be kind of a male ally and you know those kinds of things. Basically, just be like aware of who you're in the room with.
Yeah, it's interesting because you said that you would seek out women groups. Um, it's interesting because I built women groups because we didn't have women groups. So I was like, okay, well, I need more women. I realized that the testosterone level in my life was way too high, and I was like, all right, I need some well-balanced estrogen. So I would actually help build out since I started my career, women groups. Crow.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a tactic I have used throughout my career. I've been privileged to work with a lot of amazing lady engineers and leaders. And like what Ejima and others have stated is that there's a hesitancy to kind of put yourself out there and to do public speaking. So a technique I use is I will offer to co-present with folks. And this is where, Marsala touched on finding allies. And what the technique is we'll co-develop a presentation. And then, during the presentation, I will always give myself less and less slides and let my co-presenter speak more and more. And I've been very fortunate to experience the very first public presentations from four of the probably the most amazing folks I've ever met in cybersecurity and open source. And they're all ladies. And I've kind of used this technique, and they've gone on to blossom and be amazing public speakers and leaders in their own right. And it's just, offering somebody a hand to help and providing them a safe platform is amazing things will come from that. And that's what I would encourage everybody here, role model the behaviors that you want to see, reach out to others, help another person, do these types of things. If they're interested in doing public speaking, offer to co-present. And that's personally, I find that very addicting. I love the rush of public speaking, and I've been able to kind of infect a lot of people with that. So I would encourage you all to kind of think about that as well.
And I am a byproduct of Crow. Not the public speaking, but I am a byproduct of Crow.
You're part of my family tree. So we have about 15 minutes left. What what resources or people or strategies have you seen that have helped you kind of achieve your level of success in open source that you could potentially share with others in the community? Are there any amazing group like Yessie mentioned she was creating lady focused groups? Are there any other specific resources you would like to call out and kind of showcase to the folks here?
Yeah, I have an endless list in my mind of different community groups depending on where you want to go. There's a big shout out to Hacker and Heels. They build out programs for executive, um, for women in leadership and executive roles for cybersecurity. They do study groups for ladies to go ahead and get certifications. You have Women in Cyber Jitsu. They put conferences together and such. The WIT, Women in Tech. There's like an endless list. You have locals, you have B-sides, you have OWASP, um, Latinas in tech. You'll probably find Haitian in tech, vets in sec. There's like a plethora of different org groups. So I would definitely look at org groups near you. And if you don't find one that fits your bubble, guess what? You can always create it and start filing in, hit up folks on LinkedIn, send a LinkedIn message, be like, is anybody that, is XYZ want to come and chat about, books or open source, or that's probably how OpenSSF started.
I'll also say that when I've attended conferences, there is usually some sort of lunch or, something, some event that happens within those conference spaces that is a DEI event or a women and non-binary event or something, little lunch thing or something that happens, right? Or pre-conference sort of get together or something like that. And I sign up for every single one of them. Even if I can't always make them, I'm signing myself up to just go. And I've met so many great women and other folks just in general at those events at the conferences as well. So I would say I would encourage everyone to do that. I know like whenever you're at a KubeCon event, they have tons of those kinds of events. So
Yeah, and I guess what I'll add is maybe a little more kind of personal one-to-one. What has helped me a lot is um, finding mentors, and it typically happens very organically. I almost never sort of just go up to someone and say, "Hey, do you want to be my mentor?" It's just someone that I meet, and I feel like we gel, and I've had this a few times now, sort of in my career, where I talk to, and it has mostly been men, but they've sort of taken me under their wing and just mentored me through a particular phase, or just in general. They always like to talk and listen, and so just finding the people that again kind of make you comfortable, are willing to listen to you, and not being shy about asking for their time. Um, that's one of the things that I see in kind of um, women that are maybe newer in the field. They can sometimes be kind of shy about asking for your time. And I just say, like, no, like, I didn't have this when I was in your place. And so I am more than happy to sort of pay it forward and just do that when you reach my stage. And so, um, not a specific resource. I totally agree with what Jasenia and Stacey said about kind of the conferences and the groups. Um, yeah, there's kind of just several different levels of kind of support resources.
yeah, I did a crazy thing this year and volunteered my time to teach a girls who code class. Even though I don't code at all, right? I signed up. We got we're an official chapter club at the girls who code like organization, and they give you everything. So they make it really easy. So finding organizations like that too, that like you don't necessarily have to have the skill that you think you do, maybe. But it's just, showing these girls who are in elementary school that like yeah, there's plenty of us out there that maybe we don't code yet, but I told them like, I'll learn with you guys. Here we go. Let's do this together, right? So, um, It's been fun. It's been an experience. But it's been pretty fun. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of that because I did something similar with a Girl Scouts troop once. It was just like someone invited me and kind of a friend in grad school, both of us women, to talk to these also, I guess, elementary aged girls about that. And um, I have found that mentoring other women is another way for me to sort of feel like boost my confidence and feel like I belong more and sort of help uh, kind of grow the community of women in tech. So I feel like it kind of works in both directions.
It's as people go through like cybersecurity certifications, especially, you'll normally have to go through and adhere to a code of ethics and one of the principles within the ISC squared world is the fact that as a practitioner you're obligated to try to help your stewards who the company or organization you're working for, but also you're obligated to try to help improve and expand the craft, so bringing in this next generation of people. So I love that idea, Marcella, where you're going in and doing the girls who code things, Stacey. That's amazing ways to bring in the next generation of folks to kind of show that example that there are women, amazing women that are doing the job today and kind of inspiring these young folks to be able to understand that there's a career path for them. There's a lucrative career path available.
Yeah, and so one of the things that we asked those girls in this one-time event that we did, so we kind of did a programming exercise with them, very, I mean, kind of tailored for kids who don't know how to code, but at the end we were kind of just saying like, so what do you think a programmer looks like or a coder? And of course they had a lot of these ingrained stereotypes of, oh, they're men and they don't get outside and those kinds of things. Um, and the two of us just we expected those kinds of answers and we just kind of said, you know, uh, if that was the case, do you think we would be involved in this field? And they kind of it was really cool to see how they started to rethink their kind of expectations. So yeah.
It's awesome.
Uh,
Anything else we want to share, ladies?
I just like that question. I think I'm gonna use it more in the external, but I think finding these external like communities like Girl Scouts, there's a bunch of platforms online that they're looking for instructors, and then you work with them to build out these courses, and then you get to connect and teach. And like Stacy said, you can just jump in and be like, I'm learning this too. Let's do this together. Hoorah, you know? And I think those are some of the more funner experiences because questions come up and you're like, let's do this together as a group. All right, some brainstorming activities. I think that's great.
It's amazing. So, in our last couple minutes, do we have any questions or comments for each other? Anything we want to talk about? Or are all the problems solved of the world?
I think we need a women in OpenSSF. Uh, at least a Slack channel.
I love it.
Yeah.
Let me get my mission accomplished banner out. No, I think that's a phenomenal idea, Stacy. That's something. And Bear Group, I love the fact that we're reaching out to the community, these different communities of interest. But I would strongly encourage this group, if we think that's something of value you want to contribute to, let's spin that up.
Yeah, absolutely in favor of that. And really all of the other groups that we've sort of focused on so far and plan to focus on. And right, I mean, a lot of these groups are going to intersect too. So that's always cool to see. But yeah, I'm totally in favor of that. Um, since Open Source Summit North America and OpenSSF Community Day are coming up, what events do you know about there where women or other sort of underrepresented groups could actually join?
At each of the Linux open source summits, as Stacy mentioned, they will have a women in tech and a DEI non-binary lunch. So that's something that always happens. And typically, it's been like most open source conferences will have something similar, or some type they'll put notices out. We're having some type of meetup if you're interested in this particular group or this technology area. So I would definitely encourage you all to look for those things. And as we're part of the Linux Foundation, we have the ability to coordinate and organize those types of things. So like when we're in Denver, there's nothing to say. We can't say, hey, any ladies that are interested in talking about this topic more, let's go get a coffee down the street. And we can do more formal things as well, but we can get meeting spaces to provide folks the forum and the platform to be able to have those conversations and make those connections. Because networking, from my experience, is one of the most crucial things you can learn in your career. It's not, you have to know some things, but who and being able to earn somebody's trust and respect, that is invaluable in this ecosystem.
I agree with that statement 1,000%. My last 3 jobs that I've got are all from networking. So powerful.
Yes.
Yep, my last 2. Your network is your net worth.
Mm-hmm.
Every
Yeah.
job I've had since 1998.
To be like you when I grew up, Crow.
Bald and round.
Beard. The wizard beard. That's something I can't grow.
I will Amazon you a beard.
Oh, save it for October.
You had a comment, Prince?
Yeah, you mentioned since 1998, and I'm saying that's very, very long. That's been a long time. That's
It is.
actually how old I am.
Well, and it's I think everybody here on the call will state that you work with people, they understand and respect your work, and it's through those networking opportunities is that you'll get invited to go apply for something. You're not necessarily given a job, but you're getting that invitation to get past the AI firewall. Hey, that recommendation from Stacy is kind of your hand up, pulling you in and giving you that opportunity to showcase your value to the rest of the team. But that's it's incredibly powerful.
Very. That's actually how I got my first internship. Was I got a call on a Saturday from a recruiter, and he's like, "How's this date?" And I was like, "Okay, what do I need to bring for the interview?" He's like, "No, no, you're gonna start the internship." And I was like, "Okay, let me go give my notice." But yeah, and just the last minute advice, something that I learned this year, which I thought was great for like your goal for your personal brand, is your brand should find you your jobs. Yep. And that's where I dropped the mic.
Excellent. That's an excellent statement. Any other final thoughts? Thank you all, the ladies that came and shared their experiences and talking through this very important topic. Thank you for participating in the working group. And what's on deck next month, Marcella?
I think next month is
It might be Asian heritage.
Oh, why does my Google Docs keep doing this? I try to open.
Didn't mean to
one.
put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
Yes, it is highlighting Asian American Pacific Islanders in open source.
Oh, awesome.
So
Great.
yeah, we're going to shift a little bit towards sort of just cultural, focused discussions, especially kind of the second half of the year. There are a lot of heritage months.
Mhm.
And so I think that's coming up. And in June, we have LGBTQ folks, of course, for Pride Month. So those are kind of the next 2 coming up.
Excellent.
And yeah, I want to come back to just Stacey's recommendation. We should absolutely have just like OpenSSF Slack channels for these different ones, or signal groups, whatever it is that makes you feel comfortable. Yeah.
Love it.
Thanks for driving, Crow.
Yeah. Thank you all. I appreciate you. And, I look forward to watching this recording again. Cheers,
Thank
everybody.
you so much, Crow.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
You're all the stars, not me. I'm just the
You got
fancy
the banner.
mouthpiece. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.